with us for a while now. You already know who Elijah Griffin is, the #1 defensive lineman in the class of 2025, #3 overall recruit out of Savannah, Georgia. Why did you think that we should do Elijah Griffin first in this series?
I'm not going to overthink it. Spring practice is starting up real soon. I think he is the most likely Georgia signee in this class to get in the 2 deep really fast. And I also think that Georgia offered him when he was in the 8th grade. Georgia won that commitment. He was the coast-to-coast #1 defensive tackle in the country. He's a Savannah boy, those 912 boys. There's something in that salt water down there that make him play ball. I know the Richard LeCount fans, the Stetson Bennett fans of the world, they would agree with me, Warren Brinson, Nolan Smith. But, Kaylee, to put it very simply, this is a guy that's got to hit for Georgia. And if Warren Brinson, if Warren Brinson kind of tipped Georgia off about Elijah Griffin, and he also started telling Elijah about Georgia. But if Elijah Griffin is not the best defensive lineman in Georgia's room, Trey Scott's room by his sophomore year, going to be a problem, because he's a guy that absolutely has to hit for Georgia. He looks like a grown man. He looks like a Georgia football defensive tackle already. Easily, people can love the player comps. He's never going to be Jalen Carter. Nobody's going to be Jalen Carter. He is a inhuman generational player, but I think Elijah Griffin's going to give you a lot of those things to say maybe he has all the potential in the world to be the second best defensive tackle of the Kirby Smart era.
Well, you mentioned Warren Brinson, who was really close to the situation with the 5-star defensive lineman Elijah Griffin out of Savannah, Georgia, who comes in at 6'5", 300. Now, once he goes to that Georgia training, some of those numbers will be different, but yeah. Warren Brinson was a major advocate of Elijah Griffin and spoke with him all throughout the recruitment process, and he actually gave him a shout-out at the NFL Combine. We asked Warren Brinson who are some of those guys in the DL room that Georgia fans need to watch out for. This is what he had to say.
And I think who I think is going to really take over for the Georgia Bulldogs like this upcoming season that people aren't seeing coming is Elijah Griffin, the freshman coming in. Elijah, man, I've known Elijah since 8th grade, and you look out. Just look out.
It's funny because in his facial expression, you can almost see him envisioning like Elijah coming at him. So, and he shouts out a lot of the older guys in the room, but that look on his face tells you he knows what exactly is about to happen with Elijah Griffin.
Kaylee, players know. Players' game can recognize game, and one of the things that we feel so enthused and empowered about leading off our next generation with Elijah, not just because he's the highest rated, not because he plays a premium position at Georgia, it's because you've heard the buzz about him. You've heard the buzz about his weight in the weight room, his work habits, the things he's done in conditioning and those competitive winter workouts at Georgia. The kids like to say it. He's him. He's that dude. Kaylee, Elijah Griffin is going to be a great football player at the University of Georgia.
Based on what you know about Elijah Griffin, whether it's something on the field or off the field, what's the one thing that DawgNation should know about him?
I think he knew. This is what I love this story, Kaylee. Like he told Georgia, I'm pretty sure I got this story pinpoint. He told Georgia after the Ole Miss game his junior year, he's like, hey, I'm going to be a dog. Just let me go through my thing. Just let me go do my thing. And he was true to his word. He went through his recruiting process. He visited schools. Even went out to USC. I think USC, Miami, and Georgia were his 3 finalists. But he was always going to be a dog. You see him there. He was at the Clemson game. He knew by then. He already known for months by that time. But Elijah is just a guy, and you hear it often in Georgia's recruiting paraphernalia or their recruiting kind of mantras. You want the best players at Georgia to come play at UGA, the best players from the state of Georgia. But then you also want them to be there. You want them to be dogs. And Elijah is going to love it because he'll be on a defensive line for the first time where he doesn't get doubled and tripled. And I think that would be a big benefit for him in terms of, there's still going to be Christian Miller on the defensive line. There's Jordan Hall. There's Gabe Harris. There's Isaiah Gibson. There's Quintavious Johnson. There's a lot of guys at Georgia that are going to make it very hard for interior offensive linemen to block that guy man on man.
Does he get into the rotation this year?
He definitely will. I think he's probably, by the end of spring practice, he's probably in the 2 deep, Kaylee, because that's how empowered, that's how bolstered I feel about Elijah. This is a guy that, like I said earlier, he absolutely has to hit, and he is going to hit. He is as close in terms of a defensive line eval of can't miss as you can get, because it's harder. But when you have these size athletes, these big grown men that can move and are strong and they're smart and have a really dedicated work ethic. I mean, he's a box checker. He checks every one. And then, you mentioned Warren Brinson, right? That look Warren Brinson had on his face. Well, Elijah's already as big as Warren Brinson right now. And Warren Brinson went to the University of Georgia 5 years ago. And Elijah's already that size and moves as well as anybody at that size.